Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into a new edition of the Batter Up podcast here on the Sports Insanity Network, sponsored by Halpert's Cards and Collectibles. I am Mike Rifkin. Today's episode, Mike Trout injured, what that means for the Angels going forward, what that means for Shohei Ohtani going forward. Other side of LA as well, the Dodgers have another pitching injury. Talk about where they go with that. The other thing is this, and this is just a scheduled thing. Sunday's episode of Batter Up will strictly be All-Star Game first half awards. That'll be Sunday. Today's show, we're not really going to focus on the All-Star Game. We're not going to focus on the Derby. We could talk implications on certain things about the All-Star Game with Mike Trout and other guys missing it. But the big All-Star Game first half award stuff, that'll be Sunday's episode of the podcast. So that's something to tune into. But like I said, we'll start with Mike Trout. And Mike Trout got hurt Monday night against the Padres. And then yesterday, it was announced that he underwent successful surgery to repair a broken hamate bone he sustained when he fouled off a pitch Monday night. The standard projected timeline is 4 to 8 weeks. So at most, it's 2 months, which puts you into September. Phil Nevin said this before the Angels game yesterday. I quote, "Just talked to Mike. He just got out of surgery. He feels great," close quote. The surgery went well. We spoke to the doctor a minute ago, but it sounds like everything went great. That's positive. I'm going to be negative on it because this is the worst possible. This is the worst thing to happen to the Angels at the worst possible time. The Angels are still around. When you look at in the standings, they are still around. And what I mean by that is they're now 7 out in the AL West. And in the wild card situation, they're 4 games out. So they're alive in the playoffs. And this is it's weird saying Mike Trout's the second best player on a team. But Mike Trout's their second best player. And Mike Trout had been healthy this year. And that's the part that's so frustrating because the past couple of years, he's had some injury issues. And when I say we, I mean the baseball fan, we deserve to see Mike Trout and Ohtani play on the biggest stage, which would be the playoffs. Trout down 2 months. And I wrote about the impact it could have on Ohtani for the network. You can check that out, www.thesportsinsanitynetwork.com. But the Trout injury has such a major impact on a lot of things because now the Angels, who are now sitting at 45 and 44, they're now a game over 500 after getting swept by the Padres. You could say if Trout's healthy, we have to buy at the trade deadline based on the fact that we have to show to Shohei Ohtani we do care about winning. We want to win. And that could lead into a contract extension. The Trout injury, I think, backs that up a little bit more because now I think this goes one of 2 ways, and you really only have 3 weeks to a month to decide what you're going to do here. Because if Trout's going to miss 2 months, I don't think you could keep Shohei Ohtani. The reason being is this: what are you going to get back for him if you lose him in free agency? A draft pick. But here's the thing: no matter who you draft with that pick, they're not Shohei Ohtani. They're not the guy who leads Major League Baseball in home runs. They're not the guy who leads the American League or is top 5 in all baseball in strikeouts. He is a unicorn. if you look up the definition of a unicorn in the dictionary, there's probably a picture of Shohei Ohtani. This is a massive issue for the Angels. So now they have to revert back to something. They either have to go push the chips in and still go all in, or you have to sell to the fan base. We don't want to lose Shohei for nothing, so we are going to trade him. And we're going to get back young players and players who could help us in the near future, because right now, it's a tough decision. No executive wants to be the guy who traded Shohei Ohtani. That's just not a thing any executive wants on their list. But you have to figure that out. And once you figure it out, the plan, I'm not sure a team won't be interested in him. The question is, I think from most teams' point of views who would trade for him, is he willing to sign an extension with us? Easy, because if he's willing to sign an extension with any team that trades for him, now we might be able to fit in some other teams. But for it's a tough situation. The Angels are between a rock and a hard place, and it's not an easy decision, but it's a decision they're going to have to make. It's that simple, and it stinks. It does, because we want to see the Angels in a big spot because of Ohtani. Mike Trout's made the playoffs once in his career. Shohei Ohtani's never made the playoffs in his career. We deserve to see both of them on the bright, with the lights on bright, on the big stage. They're not there. They're not gonna. Personally, I don't think they're gonna be there. Whether Trout stayed healthy or not, I think if Trout stayed healthy, they had a chance. Here's the problem. I think there are better teams in the American League than the Angels. Right now, the 3 wild cards would be the Orioles, the Astros, the Yankees. Those would be your 3 wild cards. Now, here's the deal. I don't think the Orioles are going anywhere. And what I mean by not going anywhere, I mean they're going to be in this race all year. The Astros just took 3 or 4 from the Rangers. So between the Astros and the Rangers, one's going to win the West, the other's going to be a wild card. The Yankees, their season hangs in the balance for me on Aaron Judge. And if Aaron Judge is healthy, then I think the Yankees can get it. If Aaron Judge is out all year, I don't know if the Yankees are good enough. I really don't. I know they're going to get Rodon back here soon. I think this weekend he'll pitch against the Cubs. But I don't trust their lineup right now. But they'll be around. They're not going to. I think the Blue Jays are going to make a run. They're only a game and a half back, but I think they're inclined to make a big run. I think the Mariners can make a run here with how good their starting pitching is. And the other team, I hate the fact that I'm saying this because I bought in before the season, and they proved to me once again that I don't think they're ready, but I think they're one hot streak away. The White Sox. I'm not going to give up on they're too talented to be this bad, but they're still 13 under. So those are just 3 teams: the Blue Jays, the Mariners, and the White Sox, who I think they get hot here. They're right back into the thick of things. And I kind of like them a little bit more than the Angels without Mike Trout. So now the Angels can go 2 schools of thought. One school is to trade Ohtani. And like I said before, no executive wants that on his resume. But if Ohtani is going to leave as a free agent, you have to consider, you have to consider moving him. because you can't lose him for just a draft pick. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to the team. It's not worth it to the organization. And listen, you have to sell to the fan base and say, listen, if he wasn't going to sign with us, what did you want us to do? That becomes the problem there. If you hold him and he stays, you look like a genius, but you can't guarantee he's staying. So Trout, the injury stinks. He was healthy for the first time in a long time. He was having a productive year, and it impacts other guys. It does. So we'll see what the Angels do here. Trade deadline is August 1st, I believe so. It's a big blow. It's a huge blow. To the other part of California now, where you got the Dodgers, who have announced that Dustin May is going to have another elbow surgery. I'm just making sure it's not Tommy John again. No, it's to repair a flexor tendon in his right elbow. So Dustin May is going to miss the rest of the year. On top of Walker Buehler, who's out. So those two guys at the top of the rotation probably not coming back. Well, May's not coming back. Buehler, I'm not sure. Maybe he comes back in September. I don't know. Clayton Kershaw's on the IL currently. He's had a great year. Arias just came back. The Dodgers need a starter. And I don't even think I could say a back-end guy. I think the Dodgers need a guy who they could put between Clayton Kershaw and Julio Arias, preferably a right-handed pitcher. That's the thing they're going to need for me in the playoffs, because they're going to make playoffs. They're the Dodgers. But they need a right-handed pitcher. They do. They need a right-handed starter. The Noah Syndergaard thing hasn't worked. And now the injuries are creeping up. The May injury is brutal. The question is, who do you go get? And especially if you're going to go to the right side, because left side-wise, maybe you can call the Nats on a Patrick Corbin and you could eat some of that money. The right side's going to be a little bit different. I'm not sure what's out there. I'll go back to the White Sox. Do you think of a Lance Lynn or a Lucas Giolito if the White Sox deem themselves out of it? You could do that. Do you go to a team? It's hard to go to anyone in the AL Central because the AL Central is bad. It's so bad to the point where the White Sox are 7.5 out. And the Guardians are 2. Call the Guardians on a Shane Bieber. See what that can get you. I mean, the A's don't really have a starter you want. The Royals just put Zach Greinke on the injured list, but I love Zach Greinke, but I think he's at the end. We're also looking at just a couple of teams that have just surprised you, like the Marlins are in a race, so they're not going to trade anybody. The Reds are in a race, so they're probably not trading. Maybe you call the Cardinals, see if the Cardinals would give up something in their rotation. I'm not saying that's best move because the Cardinals' rotation's been brutal. Do you call? What are the Cubs going to do with Marcus Stroman? That's a very interesting question because he's probably opting out after the year he's had. The Cubs can probably sell him very high. That could be a name that could intrigue me, Marcus Stroman, if I'm the Dodgers. The Pirates, young team, so I don't see them selling the farm. And the Rockies don't have a starting pitcher that I really love. I would have said Herman Marquez, but he's done for the year. So the big name would be Stroman. If you want to go elsewhere, maybe it's Lucas Giolito or Lance Lynn from the White Sox. I think the Dodgers need a right-handed pitch, starting pitch. Everyone can use bullpen help at the deadline, but I'm not going to go there yet for the Dodgers. I'm going to start in the rotation because then come playoff time, whether it's the wild card of the division series, I'm going to go Arias, whoever, Kershaw. And then who you throw in game 4, that's strictly up to the Dodgers. I could tell you if the Mets fall out, would they be interested in a Scherzer again? But who knows? Who knows? But I would lean. Stroman's probably the biggest one to watch, but Lynn Giolito, maybe someone in St. Louis, whether it's Flaherty or someone else. But the Dustin injury stinks. Young pitcher who's pitched really well when he's pitched, but another year hurt. And it's just bad timing for the Dodgers because, again, who knows what happens with Walker, what's going on with Walker Buehler. I don't know personally. So the Dodgers have pitching problems. The Angels have a massive decision to make. And I mean, we're talking franchise altering. Like being able to sign Ohtani to whatever it is and trading him, you're talking about 2 totally different directions. So we'll see how that goes for both those teams. So those 2 teams have major conversations. I do want to talk about I want to talk about a couple of specific teams too before I get into the weekend stuff. I'm going to start with the Astros, who over the weekend won a big series with the Rangers. They took 3 of 4. Go watch the game from Monday. Crazy game between the Astros and the Rangers. The Astros, all of a sudden, they've won 4 in a row. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They're 2 games in back of the Rangers, and they're doing it now without Yordan Alvarez. So they're finding ways to be. This is the sign. This is when you know you're a good team. The Astros have been there, done that. Their most important hitter is out. They've had injuries throughout their rotation as well. And they missed out Tuve at the beginning of the season. They're so good. They're another team. Like at the deadline, starter, maybe they look into the bullpen as well. Maybe they also look into acquiring another bat, but Kyle Tucker's had a really nice year. Altuve's come back playing pretty well. Jose Abreu's gotten hot. Jose Abreu has gotten hot, and that's such a good sign for them because I loved that signing in the offseason, and he didn't produce for the first 2 months. He's producing now. That's important. Bregman has been great. Yainier Diaz, who had that one on their card. Yainier Diaz has played a big role. Framber Valdez has been great. Christian Javier's hit a little bit of a rough patch recently, but man, Dusty, this team's good. This team's really good. They're the defending champs for a reason. They deserve a lot of love. I know a lot of people don't like them, which is fine, but great baseball team. You have to give them the respect and the credit where it's due. They play well. They're a very good team, and they've turned the AL West into really a 2-team race by going 8-2 in their last 10. They took 3 of 4 in Arlington over the weekend. They got a big 4-gamer with the Mariners starting this weekend, starting Thursday before the break, and then after the break, just give me a second. After the break, they go to the Angels, and then they go to the Rockies. before they go to Oakland, and then they'll play the Rangers. Okay, so Mariners, the All-Star break, then it's Angels, Rockies, A's, and then after the A's, it's the Rangers and the Rays going into Houston. That's a huge back-to-back, the Rangers and the Rays. That's huge for the Astros, who have been playing great, 8-2 in their last 10. But there's been another team that's also hot, and they're just, let's be real honest here. They're the best team in baseball. More on that in a little bit. The Braves. The Braves are the best team in baseball. I know we could say, the Rays have a better record, but and we'll get into the Rays and the Braves because they're going to play each other this weekend, and I, for one, cannot wait for it. And I'm going to get into a little beef I've got with the schedule as well, but that'll come in a little bit. They are so good. They are so deep. Olsen leads the National League in home. Matt Olsen leads the National League in home runs. Ozzie Albies has gotten hot. Austin Riley, he's due for another hot streak. Orlando Arcia is the starting shortstop in the NL in the All-Star game. They have 2 catchers who could hit with Murphy and d'Arnaud. Michael Harris, who got off to a terrible start, has played really well. And then Ronald Acuna is your NL MVP in the first half. That's a spoiler for Sunday, but he's been great. He's been sensational. I think he's on pace for 40 homers, and I think I overheard someone say 78 stolen bases. That's what he's on pace for. The dude is so dynamic. He's a great player. They're loaded, and they've done this without their two of their best starters, Max Fried and Kyle Wright, who've both been hurt. You get Mike Soroka back. He pitched 4 innings the other night of shutout ball. They have a great bullpen. They're loaded. And Brian Snitker, I think, is the best manager nobody talks about. The job he's done with that team since he's taken over. So, to me, the National League, we usually say it's the Dodgers versus the field. Well, it's time to change that because it's no longer the Dodgers. It's the Braves versus the field. They're very good. They're great. I said last week, I think on Sunday's show, I said last Thursday, I said the Marlins were going into Atlanta. I said it's a huge series for the Marlins. Make a statement, show us you're here. And the Braves just said no. We're going to take it to you. You might be the second best team in the NL East, but there's still a large gap between the Braves and the Marlins. So they're phenomenal. They really are. They don't have holes. They have power throughout their lineup. But let's be real honest with you. They're an American League lineup in the National League. Them and Philly, those are American League lineups in the National League when you talk about the universal DH. So the Braves are rolling. They're 9-1 in their last 10, and it's better than that recently. So they're crushing it. So the Marlins, who are 7-3 in their last 10, the problem is those 3 losses were to the Braves. So the Marlins have had a great first half. The Phillies are rolling. They've won 11 straight on the road. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They've taken the first 2 from the Rays. They're the team for me to watch in the second half because they're getting hot kind of at the same time as they got hot last year. And the thing is, Trey Turner's had a real quiet first half. So is Bryce Harper. And I don't think that's good for the rest of the National League because those 2 guys are ready to get unlocked. And they're going to get hot. And they're going to do some damage, those 2 guys. Castellanos is an all-star this year. He's had a great rebound year after being awful last year. He's been great. Schwarber hits bombs, you know that. Bohm has had a nice year. Alec Bohm's had a nice year. And then the rotation. Zach Wheeler, been pretty good. Aaron Nola's coming off a great start against the Rays. They need him. He's the key for me in everything they do. If Nola pitches well behind Wheeler, and then you get into Suarez and Taijuan Walker, the Phillies have a good enough rotation. They may want to add a piece in the bullpen, but that's every team. That they are the team. I'm just waiting to see them. I wouldn't be shocked if they made a massive run in the National League again. So yeah, you got the Braves, you got the Astros, you got the Phillies. I can talk Mets too if you want. They've won 4 in a row. Great win on Wednesday night. Sengo was great. Francisco Alvarez game-tying home run. Cannigo had triple in the 9th off Andrew Chafin. The Mets have trimmed the wild card to 6.5. Huge series this weekend. We'll get into that in a second. But everyone wanted to bury him, including myself. I've buried them multiple times. They've gotten off the floor and they've showed some fight, and it's respectable. So there we go. As I said, on to the weekend stuff. That's today's schedule. I said we'll start. Let's start with the 2 best teams in baseball. You get the Braves and the Rays. And here's my big issue. I'm going to go through the pitching matchups here. This is according to ESPN. Friday night, Charlie Morton against Tyler Glasnow. So a former Ray and Charlie Morton taking on Tyler Glasnow. Saturday will be Spencer Strider against Taj Bradley. Strider's got an interesting case to start the All-Star game for the National League. And then Sunday will be Bryce Elder against Zach Eflin. So those are your 3 pitching matchups this week in Tampa. Again, the 2 best teams in baseball going at it. So Braves, Rays, the 2 best teams in baseball playing 3 games in Tampa. Shane McClanahan went on the injury list for the Rays, but we're seeing some kinks in the Rays. Now, they were never going to play to the level they did early in the year. Never. And they're slowing down just a bit. They're still really good. They still got a ton of all-stars. They've got a really good team. Kevin Cash has done an amazing job. I'm intrigued by the pitching matchup, especially the first night. Tyler Glasnow, Charlie Morton. So here's where the beef comes in. The Friday night game is an Apple TV game. Listen, I've gone on these streaming games. I don't love them. Saturday night's a Fox game, so should be the game of the week. Sunday's an afternoon affair. There is no Sunday night game this week, just based on the Derby and the Home Run Derby and the All-Star game. So one night of national television for the 2 best teams in baseball. Nothing says grow the game like that. So it should be a fun series. You got a lot of great talent with Acuna, Albies, Olsen, Rosarino, Wander Franco for the Rays. Let's see it. The 2 best teams in baseball duke it out. Phillies Marlins this weekend. Big series in the NL East. Especially with how well Phillies played. They're 3.5 back of the Marlins for second place. So this is a big series down in Miami. So the Phillies could show they're here. They're ready. The Marlins, it's similar to the Brave series. take 2 of 3, and then go into the break high note. High note. If you're any of these teams. Orioles and Twins will play this weekend in Minnesota. The Twins are beating up on the Royals currently this week. The Orioles will look for a split of 4 games with the Yankees on Thursday. Reds Brewers, first place in the NL Central's on the line. The Reds are 2 up on the Brewers. And let me tell you something. I don't think the Reds are going anywhere. The young players have performed at such a high level. De La Cruz, Spear, they're good. They're really good. The Brewers have played really well too, for the most part. But the Reds are just playing really well. So the Brewers, Reds, they'll play before the break. That'll be, I believe it's in Milwaukee. It is. Mariners, Astros, 4 games in the AL West. Look, I said it before, I'll say it again on the Mariners. They need, for me, if they can win 3 or 4 here, and it's hard, it's the Astros. They're the team. They're one of those teams in the American League that can make a run because their starting pitching is really good with George Kirby, Luis Castillo, Bryce Miller. These guys have pitched, for the most part, really well. It's the bats they need. They need Julio Rodriguez to be great. They need Eugenio Suarez to be great. Ty France, J.P. Crawford, Teoscar Hernandez. They're going to need those guys. You have the Angels and the Dodgers. Dodgers took 2 in Anaheim. The Angels need to respond here. The Angels need to have good feelings not only going into the break, but over the next couple of weeks, just based on what they have to do with Ohtani. If they can play well and they can convince themselves that they are still in a race and they hold them and they become a buyer at the trade deadline, when Mike Trout returns, okay, we've got something there with the Angels. The Dodgers, we know, they're great. Will they overtake the D-backs in the NL West? I don't know. But they're going to be in the playoffs because they're the Dodgers. You have the Cardinals and the White Sox in a battle of the two of the most disappointing teams in baseball. Cardinals just find ways to lose, as to the White Sox. And then Mets and the Padres. And that's another one, 2 of the bigger disappointments in baseball. But if you look, similar record. If the Mets are to win on Thursday over the Diamondbacks, they'll have identical records. The Padres are just a half game better in the wild card. So this is a huge series for both. The Padres are coming off of the sweep of the Angels. The Mets have won back-to-back series. And the series will line up this way. Friday night will be actually quite a pitching matchup. Justin Verlander against Yu Darvish, who has not been great this year, but he owns the Mets. So that's Friday night. Saturday night will be David Peterson against Blake Snell. Snell's been really good recently. He's been awesome. Peterson, I think this is his 3rd start since comeback from AAA. And Sunday afternoon before the break will be Max Scherzer. And according to ESPN, it is undecided. I've also heard maybe Michael Wacha could come back for the Padres. So maybe that's the person that's the guy they go with. These are 2 other teams I'm going to look at in the National League and say, can you make a run in the second half? For the Padres, they have it. They have everything. They have Machado's healthy, Soto's healthy, Bogarts is healthy, Tatis is healthy. They just DFA Nelson Cruz. They have the pitching staff with Musgrove, Darvish, and Blake Snell. They have the bullpen with Hader. They have all of that and then some. The Mets, the Mets have gotten disappointing years out of a lot of guys. We can point to the Alonso and Lindor averages, but they are still driving in runs. But if the Mets are going to make a run, there are three guys they really need. They need Jeff McNeil to return to batting champ 4. They need Starling Marte, who's looked better at the plate recently, And the third guy they need, and this is going to sound weird, but they kind of need Adam Ottavino. They need Adam Ottavino. And what I mean by they need Adam Ottavino, they also need Drew Smith, but they need guys not named David Robertson in that bullpen to step up. And I get it. There are guys in there who haven't been great. Jeff Brigham, who just got optioned down after the Trevor Gott deal. But they do, because you can't overwork David Robertson here. You need other guys in that pen to step up. Now, that could also come from the rotation. And think of how great Kodai Senga was the other night. Scherzer's pitched well. I know he gave up 3 home runs on the 4th of July, but Arizona, the ball jumps kind of like Colorado. So that I'm willing to give him a little bit of a pass on that one. Plus, the Mets still won, so I'll give him the pass. Verlander, I think Verlander's inclined for a big second half, especially the way he threw the ball in his last start against the Giants. I think the Mets, I think the Padres, I think they both can make a run. The question is who's going to falter in the National League. The Diamondbacks, I think, are going to be here, be in that spot. The Dodgers are the Marlins going to falter? Are the Reds going to falter? Are the Brewers going to falter? Those are the teams like clinging to life. The Cubs as well. Especially with the trade deadline, I wonder on the Cubs. But listen, if the Mets and Padres, I think both can make a big second half run. All right. Once again, Sunday's edition of Batter Up will be first half awards and the All-Star game. That will be Sunday. First half awards, All-Star game. So that'll do it for this edition of Batter Up. Sponsored by Halpern's Cards and Collectibles here on the Sports Insanity Network. Follow us on social media, Twitter for now, at SInsanityReal. Facebook, we're there. Just search it. You can listen to the podcast, Spotify, Google, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Check out the website, www.thesportsinsanitynetwork.com. Blogs, vlogs, planes, trains, and automobiles. I am Mike Rifkin. I will talk to you again Sunday for the final first half edition of the Batter Up podcast. Have a good weekend, everyone, and we will talk Sunday.